So, let me ask you one of the biggest questions imaginable. Does our reality have a boundary? Like, is there a cosmic edge somewhere that you could actually point to?
We're going to unpack two completely different, really profound answers to that question. First, we're going to take a trip back to the 11th century to meet a Persian philosopher who was absolutely convinced he had cracked the code of reality, using nothing but pure logic. For this thinker, reality wasn't some kind of unknowable, swirling mystery. No, not at all. It was a solvable puzzle, a system that was finite, knowable, with clear, definable edges that the human mind could totally grasp and map out.
Then, we'll look at a perspective that suggests the very things we're trying to measure, the world, our experiences, even ourselves, well, they might not be what they seem to be at all. Okay, so let's start by building the case for a universe with a hard edge.
All right, first up, let's build this really compelling case for a finite reality, just as it was laid out by the Ismaili thinker and poet Naser Khosrow. Now, he wasn't just throwing out ideas. He built a series of incredibly precise, logical proofs to show that infinity just cannot exist in the real world.
Khosrow's whole argument here really rests on one simple but powerful idea. For something to be real, it has to be finite. For something to truly exist, it has to be defined. And to be defined, well, it needs a boundary. He even had a specific word for this essential boundary, a karana.
Okay, so his first proof is just beautiful in its simplicity. He basically says, look around. Everything that exists is either subtle, like a thought, a spirit, an idea, or it's dense, like a rock, a planet, your body. And because these things are opposites, one must end for the other to begin. It's just like how the edge of light is defined by where the shadow starts. The world of the subtle has to have a boundary where it bumps up against the world of the dense. They literally limit each other.
His next argument is even more direct. It's a classic part-to-whole line of reasoning. I mean, look around you. Every single thing you can see and touch has an end, right? A chair has legs and a back. The earth has a surface. So, since the entire universe is just the grand total of all of its finite parts, the universe itself has to be finite. Think about it. How could you ever build something truly infinite just by adding up a bunch of finite things? Khosrow says, logically, you just can't.
Now, this last proof gets to the heart of it. It's about knowledge itself. He basically says, for something to be real, we have to be able to know it. But how do we get to know anything? We grasp it by one of its sides, one of its faces, so to speak. That very act of knowing something, of perceiving it, creates a boundary for our understanding. An infinite thing, by definition, would have no faces, no sides, nothing for our minds to grab onto. It would be completely unknowable. And for Khosrow, if it's unknowable, it can't be real. Khosrow's logic feels pretty airtight, doesn't it? A neat, ordered, knowable universe. But what if we've been asking the wrong question all along? We're about to pull the rug out from under this entire argument by looking at a worldview that questions the very idea of separate things. So let's turn to the Buddhist perspective. Buddhism comes at this whole cosmic question from a totally different angle. Instead of measuring the world out there, it turns the investigation inward, to examine the one who's doing all the measuring in the first place, the self.
See, the Buddhist tradition says that what we call our self isn't this solid single thing we imagine it to be. It's more like a temporary bundle of 5 constantly shifting processes, which are called the aggregates. You've got your physical body, your feelings, your perceptions, all your thoughts and biases, and then finally, the awareness of all that stuff. There's no permanent you sitting in the driver's seat. There's just this ever-changing flow of these 5 processes.
This gets us to the core doctrine of anatta, or not self. Because these 5 streams are always changing, they're impermanent. And the big insight here is that clinging to something that's always changing, mistaking this shifting process for a solid, permanent me, that's the real root of our anxiety and dissatisfaction. It's the source of what's called dukkha, which we often translate as suffering. But it's really more like that constant low-level stress we all feel. It's the friction we create by resisting change. This whole investigation into the not-self leads us to one of the most mind-bending ideas in all of philosophy. Check out this famous quote from the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness, and the very emptiness is form. Now, wait a minute. That sounds like a total contradiction, right? How can form be empty, and how can emptiness have form? Well, this paradox isn't a mistake. It's actually the key to understanding the entire Buddhist worldview. So, emptiness, or shunyata, does not mean nothingness. It's not saying things don't exist. What it means is that things are empty of a separate, independent existence. Think about a flower. Is it just a flower? No. To be a flower, it needs everything that is not flower. The sunlight, the rain, the soil, the air, the bee that pollinated it. It only exists because of this huge web of connections. This is called interdependent co-arising. Nothing, and I mean nothing, stands alone.
To really get this, let's use a classic analogy. Picture a wave in the ocean. We can see it, right? It has a clear shape. We can measure its height. It seems to have a beginning and an end. It looks like a separate thing, exactly the kind of finite object Naser Khosrow would point to as proof of a bounded reality.
But what is the wave, really? Can you go and take the wave out of the ocean and put it in a bucket? Of course not, because its fundamental reality is water. The wave's form is just a temporary thing the whole ocean is doing. And this perfectly illustrates the Buddhist view. Things have form, sure, but their true nature is this vast, interconnected, empty reality. So asking if the universe has an edge is kind of like a wave asking where the ocean ends. The question itself is based on the mistaken idea that the wave was separate to begin with.
So here we are with two incredibly powerful, totally different ways of seeing the world. One uses strict, formal logic to define a reality that has clear boundaries. The other uses meditative insight to dissolve those very boundaries and see reality as one seamless whole.
This table really breaks down the differences. I mean, just look at the goals. For Khosrow, the goal is to know the truth. His tool is logic, and the reality he finds is bounded and knowable. For Buddhism, the goal is totally different. It's to end suffering, to reach nirvana. The method isn't logic, it's insight, which reveals a reality that's interdependent and boundless. And that completely changes how they see the self. For one, it's a rational knower. For the other, it's an illusion we need to see through.
And what's so cool is that these ancient debates pop up again and again in Western philosophy. Khosrow's whole rationalist project feels a lot like Aristotle, building truth from logical blocks. And meanwhile, the Buddhist deconstruction of the self into those 5 aggregates, it's remarkably similar to the Scottish philosopher David Hume's famous bundle theory of the self, which came about 2,000 years later. It just goes to show you, these are truly universal human questions.
Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear what you think. Your support really means a lot and it helps me keep creating content for you all. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.
So where does all this leave us? We're kind of standing here with two radically different, yet completely coherent pictures of reality.
We really have two compelling answers. On one hand, you have this structured cosmos with a definite edge, a reality that we can know and master through our intellect. On the other hand, you have a boundless reality where peace isn't found by measuring the world, but by dissolving the very self that's asking the question. Both are incredibly profound responses to that deep human need for meaning.
And that kind of brings us to the final thought here. Maybe the point isn't about choosing a side, deciding if the universe is bounded or boundless. Maybe the real value is in understanding what each of these perspectives reveals about the nature of existence. And maybe more importantly, about the nature of the mind that is asking the question in the first place.